Quest 3, Level 3. This is a review of argument as well as some new information, specifically Bullock's 3 rules of argument. I'll get to those in a second. So obviously you're going to read a couple of arguments just to refresh your memory of what a good argument should look like. The very first one is by a woman from a particular state where she says that there are parts of this state that are poor and mainly African American or Hispanic, and the state systematically underfunds the schools in that part of the state, so that when she, who graduated very near the top of, or at the, graduated successfully from a high school in this area of the state that is chronically underfunded, she went to a prestigious university nearby, and she found that the kids in her classes at the university knew stuff that she had never been taught, that she is coming out as a disadvantage. Spoiler alert, it is not Wisconsin and Milwaukee. It is South Carolina and what is called the corridor of shame. Bullock's first rule of argument is to define your terms. If you are making an argument and you are not clear about the thing that you are arguing for or against or over, you're not going to do well in that argument. And so when this author is using the phrase corridor of shame, she has to define it. Next, you're going to go back into the Springboard book for a speech. This was actually given by a women's rights activist 100 years ago about whether or not women should get the right to vote. So this is Susan B. Anthony. She is arguing for the right to vote. And again, she defines terms. She clearly states her claim. This is Bullock's second rule of argument. You cannot, under any circumstances, be wishy-washy about that which you are arguing. You can't be like, I kind of think women like me should be allowed to vote. Because if you put it like that, every man in the world is going to be like, see, this is why we can't let women make decisions. They're wishy-washy. So clearly state your claim. Bullock's third rule of argument: use real evidence. Okay? Susan B. Anthony doesn't stand up and say, I think that if a woman tried to vote, this thing might happen. No, she says, I tried to vote, and this thing happened to me. When the author of the argument about schools, and she has a difficult to pronounce name, I'm not even going to try. That's why I haven't said her name. It's not out of disrespect. It's, I just don't think I can say it. But when she says, a student from one of these schools probably doesn't have computers, she's like, we had a computer lab, but the computers never worked. This was a real thing that happened to me. So there you go. Those are the 3 rules of argument. Both of these authors are following those 3 rules. So guess what you do at the end of this level? If you said write an argument, you are correct. Well, we're going to take a quick detour into They Say, I Say. This is a fabulous little book. It is a resource that is available to you at all times, even though you may not have known that until just now. You're going to read through the introduction, where the authors talk about the purpose of this book. And what I really like about the book is that it gives you real fill-in-the-blank templates that you can use in your arguments and in your writing. So that's one of the requirements. When you write this argument, you're going to use some of their templates. Now, what is your argument about? I don't care. Something that you are excited about arguing. Let's look at the rubric. This rubric looks long and complicated, but I assure you it is not. There are, in fact, a couple of these that should be pretty easy for you to score well on. Comprehension of informational text. Are you getting stuff right about Susan B. Anthony and about the other argument that we are reading? There's also conventions of standard English. Your work includes few errors in grammar or mechanics, and the knowledge of language your writing includes some of those They Say, I Say templates and some transitions. We talked in an earlier quest about using transitions in your writing, and in the writing conferences that you and I have undoubtedly had by now, we have talked about transitions. You're doing them well, or you need to do more, something like that. But let's take a look at the argument standard and the planning standard. To score advanced on argument, your writing at the end of the level clearly defines the terms, clearly states your claim, and offers only real evidence for your claim. If you were paying attention earlier, you know that those are Bullock's 3 rules. So if you can do those 3 things, you can score advanced in the argument standard. I promise you. Planning. My writing at the end of the level closely follows the springboard argument structure or some other effective logical structure. The springboard argument structure, right? That is the one, we've talked about it several times. You go back to an Indian father's plea in level 1, you go back to some arguments from quest 1, quest 2. Even if you look at the structure of the arguments in this level, it begins with a hook. Then there's a claim. Then there's support for that claim. There's a concession and refutation. And if you don't know what those are by now, talk to me. And then finally, a call to action. So what do we do? So in your argument, I don't care if it's 5 paragraphs, if it's 500 paragraphs, but if you are following that structure, you are going to do really well. Are you limited only to that structure? No. If there's another outline that you would like to use, some other way that you are confident about presenting your arguments, you do you. As long as you have a solid, logical structure for this argument, you will score well on the planning standard, okay? Good luck.